This is round 1 of the Mountaineer Open in West Virginia. My first time playing in West Virginia, and I'm playing against a West Virginia University student, Minal. I actually saw her at Pan Am's a couple weeks earlier in Chicago, so small world after all. The time control is game in 60, delay 10, and it is a 4-round event in 1 day, so it's going to be a long day ahead of me, and we'll see how I do in my very first tournament of 2026. All right, let's hop right in here. This is going to be a no engine recap until the very end, where we're going to put the game review, and I'm also going to look up some critical moments according to the engine. I play e4, good old trusty e4, and we both develop our pieces, and after knight of 6, I play the Scotch gambit. I transpose to the Scotch gambit. She ends up taking, and I push e5. Alternatively, castles is also one of the main moves, but I push e5, she pushes d4, or she pushes d5, and I play bishop b5, pinning her knight to her king. And the main move I see is knight e4, which allows me to take on d4, and I have a lot of games that go like this. But instead, she actually plays knight d7, which is less common, but just as good. Nothing wrong with it. There's like 10 billion different ways to play with it, and I castle. No rush to defend this pawn or take this pawn because they're not going anywhere. She can't take, of course, because this knight's pinned, and she plays bishop c5, defending d4. And I've seen this before. I've actually had it in an online game. I want to say definitely within the last year or so, like this exact position, because bishop c5, I believe, is an inaccuracy because of bishop g5. Or actually, no. It's an inaccuracy because I take on c6 first, 2 sets of double pawns, and then I play bishop g5. And, Black really doesn't want to go f6 because that opens up her king in the center of the board. And if you play bishop e7, I have this really nice move I can throw in, which is knight takes d4. I actually, to be honest, I don't remember. It's been so long since I've seen this. I completely forgot what I'm supposed to do if knight takes e5. I really don't remember. Like, I think I can probably trade and then go here, because now if she castles, I'm threatening f4. So that seems like a decent enough threat, probably. So that's probably good enough. But I remember getting knight takes e4, and I was like, I don't 100% remember what knight takes a5, what I'm supposed to do, but it's probably okay. She defends the c6 pawn with the bishop, and then we trade. And I've had this position before, and I know the main move is e6. But I couldn't really quite remember, just like, if she goes knight f6, how good is this for me? I think I just have a slight edge because, yes, I can take on f7, but I'm gonna go rook f1, and then she can move her queen somewhere, and then not 100% convinced how good this is, but it's probably just good, or it's okay for white. Maybe I'm not even supposed to take on f7. Maybe I'm supposed to go rook e1 first, but then she can castle, which doesn't feel right. What am I doing with my pieces? So I was I didn't quite remember what I was supposed to do after knight f6, but she just took, which is great because now I take and I pin her queen to her king, and she throws in her knight in front of it, but I can win it back. So really cool, slightly complicated maneuver, and I'm playing someone, her published rating was 1,000, her live rating is 1,100 apparently, but I really, I would love to win quickly. Because there's 3 more rounds of game in 60 delay 10 after this. I want to win quickly, and playing someone 700 points lower rated than me, I really don't want to have a tough game. It's a bad sign. But that's actually what it ends up becoming, because she plays g6, which is the only move, because it forces the trade of queens. I actually thought here for let me think. I think I thought here for 6 minutes after g6. I stopped for 10 minutes after g6 because I was trying to calculate what the ensuing endgame was like. Because we've traded a lot of pieces so far. We've traded 3 minor pieces after I take on e5, and we traded queen. So it's basically an endgame. Basically an endgame already, and it's like move 15. What I was really thinking about was after I take on e5, of course, if she takes my rook, then, I get my queen out of danger. She takes my queen. I take her queen. If king f7, if I go rook h6, attacking the pawns, and somewhere around here, I think somewhere around here is where I got in my online game. I believe I got into an endgame like this, and I ended up losing the game. I forget how, but I ended up losing that game. And I remember one of the details I found out after my online game in the same variation was that rook h6 was very powerful. That's like the one idea that I kind of remember. Like rook h6 can be a powerful move. And so what I was trying to calculate was, if she plays king f7, and I go rook h6, and she goes rook e8, threatening mate, I go knight c3, defending against mate and guarding e2. She could push d4, sure. She could do other stuff, but rook e5. And I was like, wait a second. If I just do like, let's say I go like, I don't know, like h4, opening up, giving lift for my king. My rook is trapped. And I was like, this looks dicey, me no likey. And, I can throw in this move f4 and then go like rook e6. But I was like, what am I doing? Like, I played rook h6 just to go back to e6. And now I'm like, I lost a pawn. That doesn't look that great. I could also, like, throw in this move. So now, like, if he goes here, I can go f4, and now my pawn is defended. But then, like, but he could also, if I go rook f1, like, firstly, it's a step in the wrong direction. Like, I'm putting a rook from a closed file to a closed file, but also bishop a6 just concretely just makes it very annoying for me. So I ended up not having a great answer, but, like, I don't think I'm supposed to go rook h6. If king f7, like, I'm actually not 100% sure. Like, instead of if king f7, like, I think I can just go rook e3 or rook e1. Point is, though, I want the trade to happen, because if I take with the queen instead of the rook, then, like, we reach a similar position, but now her pawn structure is better. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna take with the rook and see if she goes king f7 first, and then I'll decide if I want to play rook e1, rook e3, rook e1, or maybe rook h6 if I can find a way to make it good. But she goes king e7. I'm like, sweet, okay, now rook h6 is good. Rook h6 is good. And there's definitely different ways that she could have continued. Rook a e8 is definitely the most obvious move, makes a lot of sense. You're centralizing a rook, you're putting it in the center, and I just play knight c3. And she plays d4, and I was actually debating on a few options here. Like, part of me kind of wanted to go knight a4, but I really didn't see, like, controlling c5 seems very good, but she can play rook e2 immediately, and then if I go check, she can just defend her bishop on b7. And I wasn't really sure if this is really how I wanted to proceed. Like, I'm not even sure, like, I don't even want to take her bishop. But this pawn is hanging, I don't really have a good answer for it. If I go rook c1, maybe this is fine. Maybe this is fine. It looks a bit scary to just, like, allow so much activity. But I can go f3. Actually, f3 here. This doesn't look that pleasant. I guess I can go g3 and then f4, and then, like, it doesn't look that pleasant. What's good for me is that, like, I am threatening back rank mate a lot of times with the help of a knight. So if she ever moved her, like, rook up here, for example, this would just be, well, if the rook couldn't go back, this would just be mate. So that's definitely a good thing for me. But I really wasn't really sure about knight a4, so I just went rook d1 instead, which gave her the opportunity to mess up with the move c5. At least in the moment, I was very optimistic about my chances with the move c5, because now knight a4 is a threat, and there's no way to defend this pawn. My rook cuts off the king from going forward. I guess she could go rook e5, I forgot why I thought this was still okay. Yeah, I forgot my thought process for this. Like, why was this? Ah, c3. That's the move. And I was like pretty happy with my chances here. Pretty happy with my chances. But instead of c5, she just goes king c8, which makes a lot of sense here. And of course, I cannot take because of back rank mate. So I go knight a4, and she infiltrates, and I push the pawn to h4. And this becomes an extremely clutch move. Very, very useful, because now a lot of times I can actually, take the pawn on h5 and then meet rook g8 with rook g5. And that actually becomes very, very relevant in the game. Because she takes the pawn on c2, I take the pawn on h5, and she goes rook f8, attacking my f2 pawn. And like, what am I going to do? Like, I can't go rook f1 because bishop a6, and my day is over. And this rook is actually very useful in the 5th rank. Side note, like I can slide over here, go down here, go in the open file. Like, it's actually very useful in the 5th rank. But I just play f3 because I don't really have it. That's the only move. And then she goes rook g8, and rook g5 is really the only move here. If I go g4, I mean, that is suspicious, that to say the least. Like, my king is completely cut off. She can just go centralize her rook and get 2 rooks on the 7th, and she can even like play a move like c5, giving up this pawn to take on f3, and it's game over. It's game over. So that's why I just play rook g5, and if she doesn't take my rook, which in hindsight she probably shouldn't have. She probably should not have taken my rook. I can at a bare minimum take on d4. And now she only has 4 pawns, and they're all isolated. And she can try to double up, but my rook on g5, once again, really guards everything really, really well. And actually, in this case, it would be mate. Because my rook and her bishop blocking her king's own escape. So, yeah, it definitely makes sense that she would trade. It's probably the best move to actually trade pieces now that I think about it, because my rook is very, very strong. Her rook doesn't have as good future prospects, so it's definitely the best move to take to trade rooks there. So now I'm up a pawn, but it is a double pawn. Oh wait, actually I lied. I'm not even up a pawn. She actually took on c2, so I'm actually not even up a pawn. But I do have this passer, which I cannot push yet because of threats towards my king. And after she trades, she plays c5, and that's not a move I saw from afar. I saw rook h4, rook takes h5, rook g5 from afar. I completely, I don't want to say overlooked c5, but like, I wasn't really expecting it. And when she played it, I was like, oh, I can't, my rook's not guarding the 5th rank anymore. She can play c5. And suddenly her bishop's open, and she has a huge threat. Let's say I make a do-nothing move. Like, I don't even know. What's a do-nothing move here? a3. a3 to play b4 to undermine the pawn on d4. Seems good enough to me. It makes enough sense. Get your pawn to b4. Well, bishop c6 ruins my day. My knight is trapped. If I go b3, I guess, I probably just takes. And hello, 3 passed pawns down the board. And these are weak pawns. And her king is active, or her rook is active. Like, this is not good. This is not good news. So, yeah, that's a huge threat. Like c5 with the intention of bishop c6 completely messed that idea. And I was like, oh, this is not good. I need to do something now. And I came up with the move b4. Only move, I think. And the idea is that I just control c5 more, and I can like go get my knight there if she doesn't take my pawn. She has a lot of different ways to approach things, and she ends up playing a mistake. So I made her make a decision, and she played the wrong one, in my opinion. Firstly, I think she could. Well, the reason why I went for this was because I saw that she could take the pawn, and after I take on d4, she could play c5, and after I go rook f4, she can take this pawn. However, and she has like these 2-pass pawns rolling down the board. However, I actually thought my chances, well, actually, if he does take the pawn, I take on c5, which is good for me. And if she just keeps my knight trapped on the edge of the board and plays a move like bishop c6, then I actually thought, wait a second here. I might actually have decent chances here because I want to go check. And if king c7, go check. Let's say king, I don't know which way to go. Like maybe let's say king d6 and then take. Hello, I have this passed pawn rolling down the board. She could go here and at some point, well, in this specific case, king e6 in particular, I do have this move, rook takes a7, because if she I defend my knight, and also if she takes my pawn, then I can go check and win the rook. If she defends from the back rank, and she goes back here, and I take, and then, of course, if she takes, I'm just going to push. And it's actually insane how this looks to be winning. I guess she actually has check and bishop c2, which looks pretty scary. Oh wait, no, I have check here, and I'm going to promote. So, and yeah, my pawn on a2 guarding against the bishop, very, very nice. So I actually I didn't see all these details, but I did see that I go check, and I win the pawn on h7, and I think I actually have decent chances to still be winning, even though I could be down a piece. So that's one of the things I had to calculate after b4. After b4, that's funny. Is it after or is it before? Another thing she could do is just take the pawn on a2, but I take on c5, activate my knight, and this pawn is hanging, very difficult to defend, and I still have my passed pawn long term. She plays a move I was not expecting after b4, which is d3. And the idea is interesting, but it doesn't work. Because I just take the pawn on c5 now, and she plays d2, and if I'm lazy, and let's say I make a move like f4, rook c1, game over for me. I lose because my rook is pinned to my king, so I can't take the pawn on d2, and I cannot defend my rook on d1, so I just simply lose the game on the spot. But after d2, which is what happened in the game, I go king f2, and I'm doing good. Rook c1 is met by rook takes d2, so everything's fine. And my knight is really good. It has a great outpost on c5. And so I play king f2. She centralizes her bishop. She takes the pawn. Whoopsies, I have arrows from before, from when I was inputting the game. And I could think here for about 9 minutes, because I'm trying to figure out, I'm trying to make sure, I'm double checking, triple checking that this endgame is winning without rooks on the board. If I take on d2, she most likely is going to trade rooks. If she doesn't, let's say she goes rook a3 check, because her bishop's hanging and her rook's hanging, so she has to get one out of the way, out of check. And let's say I go like king f4, c6, king f5, for example, and suddenly my king's super active. I'm going to target her weak pawns. I'm up a pawn, and with a really nice knight, there's not much she can do here. So she's probably going to trade rooks. If I take on d2, she's probably going to trade rooks. Is this knight versus bishop ending winning? And if so, what's the main ideas I need to know? Which probably I should not have spent that time, because what am I going to do? Not take the pawn? So I probably just should have taken the pawn and saved my time. But it was a good exercise and very useful. And the idea I came up with, because what does she want to do in this endgame? After we trade rooks, what does she want to do? She wants to play c6 and take this pawn on b4 and promote one of the pawns. And meanwhile, it's difficult for me to get my pawn to f7 without committing my king all the way over there. Because this h7 pawn does a really good job of preventing my pawns from advancing. So the idea I came up with was that after the rook trade, we both move our kings, but after she plays king c7, eyeing to go b6 and b5, I'm actually going to go knight a4. And I want to meet bishop e3, attacking my knight with knight c3. And my knight and my pawn are going to work together to block out her king completely from infiltrating the queen side. And my king is going to block her out from infiltrating the king side. And her king cannot do everything at the same time. So she goes to d6. I go king d4. And now if she goes king e6, I'm going to king c5. And hello, like I'm doing very good here. And yeah, I mean that's really it. There's not much for her to do. And also my king shoulders her king, so now my knight can actually move with a check and maybe go to f6 and attack the pawn, maybe go back to c5 if I want to. Like, because she's committed her king this way now, you know, I'm doing quite well. Well, I was doing quite well when at the beginning of this endgame too, but point remains. She goes bishop f7. You know, her king's in the ideal spot, so she doesn't want to move her king. But now I go check, and now I move my king in, and there's really nothing she can do. If she goes bishop e8, then of course knight f6 would make her bishop overloaded. It's guarding these two pawns, and it can't do both. And she goes king f5, but that's you know, everything's losing here, because now I just go check, pick up the bishop, and I just go g4, which I definitely should have just taken the pawn and take the other pawn and then promote, but I thought g4 was just like a move where it's like, you can't do anything. Like, you are doing nothing now. And she goes king e6. I could have pushed to f4 and, you know, threaten f5, but I was like, whatever. I'll just take the pawn. And, you know, she wins my pawns, but it's too little, too late. I promote with plenty of time, and after I promote to the queen, she resigns. And yeah, that was the game. So definitely, if you just go rewind back, like c5 really scared me, and b4 I think was a really clutch resource here. I think there was a few other clutch resources. For example, like you could argue like, okay, well Nathan, like you played h4, but wouldn't h3 have done the same thing? Because if we just go forward with the game, let's say this happened, and rook here, and f3, and rook here. When I play g4, and now you're really guarded by everything. Once again, actually, this looks so bad. No, h4 is definitely the way to go. Yeah, h4, I was trying to play devil's advocate there with h3. I couldn't. It looked too bad. Yeah, h4, really a clutch move. And then my other clutch move being b4. And I'm still like, I wouldn't be surprised if the engine said, oh, this is equal or maybe even slightly better for black. But I liked my chances. Knights are better than bishops. It's confirmed. It's always been confirmed. But I like my chances to win. I mean, the imbalance of knight versus bishop and our pawn structure imbalance never made me doubt that like I had decent winning chances and that I could continue in this game. But I'm gonna turn on the engine and let's see what it says about these critical moments. So everything here was good. Everything here was good. Best moves. Everything makes sense. And here, yes. So rook h6 was the best move. Knight c6 good. Knight a4 significantly better. So before rook d1, it's +2, but after rook d1, it's only +0.5. So now it's equal. And h4 not great. What? I guess it can transpose, because if I just take the pawn on h5, rook takes. Oh, now it's h4. Same thing. Whatever, dude. That's so dumb. And it's an inaccuracy because of rook f8. And now if I go f3, I assume. Oh yeah, rook g8 now, and I don't have my rook isn't in time to go h5 and g5. But now my position is slightly better once again. She had to go rook d8 and fully invest in this passed pawn. That's her greatest asset. You know, if I take here, suddenly her idea of like d3 and d2 is very powerful. She can also go bishop a6. Yeah, I mean, this makes a lot of sense. Wow, yeah, that is kind of scary. But it's still slightly better for white if white plays very precisely. Rook takes d4. Because if rook here, I can go rook g4. This was the way to proceed. Wow. And if like c5. Yes. the king gets hunted out. And I'm going to take here, and life is going to be good. Okay, that makes sense. Wow, I completely misevaluated this. It's -3 right now. Wow. Because after we trade, c5 the best move. And yeah, my b4 move is not good enough. It's not good enough. She needs to take, play c5 or a5. And if bishop c6, if I go check, king c7, check, king d6, takes, here, her king is in time? No, rook takes a2. Oh my gosh, it doesn't matter that I promote because she has 2 pawns of her own. Bishop b3. Oh no, she's able to guard the promotion square in time. Oh my gosh. Oh no. I was just dead lost. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Alright. I was losing. Well, everything else to this point should have been just fine. So I'm gonna hit the game review and well, the full game review. So we can get one last final big picture of it. But I'll see you guys in the next one. That's insane. Wow, that changes a lot of things.